Imagine being on the brink of death, unable to speak, to move, to fight. Raphael, a millionaire accustomed to having control of everything, found himself in a hospital bed, intubated, with no guarantee of survival. But it was there, at the most vulnerable moment of his life, that he met Clara, a nurse who not only took care of his body, but awakened something much deeper in his heart. What begins as a journey of physical recovery soon turns into a story of overcoming twists and turns and unexpected love. While the world around questioned this unlikely connection, Raphael and Clara proved that destiny has unique ways of surprising us. And when the heart speaks louder, even the most insurmountable barriers can be broken down. Stay until the end, because this story has something that will change the way you see life and love. The torrential rain made it difficult to see anything on the road, but Raphael didn't slow down. He had just left an important meeting that, for him, had been a success. His mind was full of plans and strategies when suddenly everything went black. A deafening noise, the sound of glass breaking, and his vision went blank. When Raphael opened his eyes, everything was confused. His body felt heavy, unable to move or speak. A bright light blinded him, and voices in the background seemed muffled. He tried to move his fingers, but he couldn't. The feeling of panic increased with every second. Breathing felt difficult, like something was blocking his throat. Then he realized he was intubated. "Welcome back, Mr. Raphael," said a female voice. He tried to turn his head towards the voice, but it was impossible. With effort, his eyes adjusted to the figure of a woman in white clothes, with a serene appearance and a firm voice. "I'm Clara, your nurse. I know this is scary, but you are in good hands." Raphael blinked, frustrated at not being able to speak or react. He wanted to know what had happened, where he was, and why his body wasn't responding. Clara, however, seemed experienced in dealing with patients like him. "I know you want to scream, complain, or maybe send me away, but it won't be that easy with me. So let's lay down some rules, shall we? 1 blink means yes, 2 blinks means no. Combined." He blinked once, irritated, but also relieved to have some control, however small. It was something. "Good," she said with a reassuring smile. "Now, let me explain. You were in a car accident and were brought here in serious condition. The good news is that he's alive. The bad news, well, we're going to need a lot of patience for your recovery." The following days were the most difficult of Raphael's life. He felt like a prisoner of his own body, unable to do the simplest things. The only constant in this chaos was Clara. She not only took care of his medical needs, but also made sure to cheer him up with jokes and stories from her everyday life. "Did you know that I dropped an entire tray of instruments on my first day of work?" she said while adjusting the monitors. "It was so noisy that patients on the other floor must have heard it. Now look, I'm responsible for you." Raphael wanted to laugh, but all he managed was a slight movement on his lips. Clara noticed and joked, "Aha, see, I knew you had a sense of humor. We are already making progress." Despite Clara's light mood, Raphael still faced moments of frustration and despair. He couldn't speak, he could barely move, and the future seemed uncertain. However, Clara always seemed to know when he was at his limit. "I know it's hard, but you're making progress, even if it doesn't seem like it. Today, you managed to move your finger a little more. Small victories, Raphael. This is how we win battles." Raphael began to trust Clara in a way he had never trusted anyone. He watched her as she worked, always so careful, always so present. Although he couldn't express it in words, something in his eyes conveyed his gratitude, and Clara somehow seemed to understand. "Are you thinking about how you're going to get out of this?" Clara asked one day, while changing her bandages. "Let me guess. Once you recover, you'll go back to your important work, run the world and forget I was ever here, right?" Raphael blinked twice, denying it, which made Clara laugh. "Well, I'm glad to know you won't forget me anytime soon, And if you're going to remember me, remember what I said. No patience, no progress. Raphael's first signs of recovery began to appear slowly, almost imperceptibly. Clara, however, noticed every detail. During one quiet morning, she noticed that he was able to move the index finger on his right hand slightly. For many, it would be something banal, but for Clara, it was a victory. "Look who's trying to impress me," she joked while adjusting the monitors. "I think I'm going to need sunglasses to deal with so much progress." Raphael couldn't speak, but his eyes showed a mixture of frustration and determination. He wanted to recover, even if it meant taking small, exhausting steps. Clara began using that tiny movement as an additional method of communication. "If you're mad at me for not stopping talking, move your finger again." Raphael remained motionless, and Clara smiled. "See? You enjoy my company?" Although he was exhausted, Raphael managed to move his finger again, this time with a slight smile on his face. Clara noticed and didn't miss the chance to provoke him. "Ah, so I was wrong. You just wanted to contradict me, didn't you? I can already see that you are the stubborn type." The days passed, and Raphael began to make more progress. He could now move his hand slightly, and even respond to simple commands during physical therapy. However, the path was arduous. On a particularly difficult afternoon, he tried to lift his arm, but the effort was in vain. Clara noticed his discouraged expression and approached. Hey, nothing like that," she said, kneeling down next to the bed. "Do you think you are losing? This isn't a race, Raphael. Every little move is a victory. And believe me, I've seen people take a lot longer to get to where you are." With a lot of effort, he managed to raise his arm a few centimeters. Clara clapped her hands in celebration. "Now that's what I call progress. I can now retire with a clear conscience." Clara knew that these small advances were crucial. Raphael, even without words, felt that she not only cared for his physical recovery, but also for something deeper, his hope. When Raphael finally managed to speak again, his first words came out hoarse and choppy, but they didn't go unnoticed. Clara was changing the bandages on his arm when she heard a barely audible sound coming from him. "Do you always talk so much?" he said slowly as he struggled to form the words. Clara's eyes widened in a mix of surprise and satisfaction, and then burst into laughter. "Just look! We finally discover your voice, and you decide to use it to tease me. I knew it was a matter of time." Raphael tried to smile, but obvious tiredness limited his expressions. Even so, Clara noticed the effort and took advantage of the moment. "That is great. Now, continue. I want to see you use that language for something more useful than criticism." He watched her, exhausted, but pleased to finally be able to say something, no matter how small. However, each sentence took immense effort, which Clara noticed immediately. "No rush, okay? You've already done a lot just by opening your mouth." In the following days, conversations became constant. Raphael, still having difficulty articulating complete sentences, asked short questions that Clara always responded with enthusiasm. "How long?" "Here," he asked, pausing between words. "Almost 2 weeks," Clara replied, adjusting the cushions behind him. "And lucky for you, I'm responsible for keeping you presentable. Without me, I think we would have given up on you by now." "Arrogant," he murmured with a slight smile, visibly trying to follow her playful tone. "And proud of it," she replied, winking. These interactions helped Raphael deal with the frustration of his slow recovery. However, one afternoon, he asked a different, deeper question that changed the tone of the conversation. "Why do you do that?" he asked with effort. Clara paused for a moment, looking at him before responding. "I wanted to make a difference. When I was younger, my family went through difficulties. There was always someone like me to help. I thought it was my turn to give back." Raphael looked at her, intrigued. "And is it worth it?" "There are days when I don't," honestly. But then comes a moment like this, when you look at me and say, without saying it, that everything will get better. This makes every effort worth it. Raphael was making visible progress, but his recovery brought new challenges. The closeness between him and Clara began to be noticed by everyone around, and people were quick to comment. During a visit, his cousin Enrique decided to speak directly about the situation. "Raphael, I know you're going through a difficult time, but you need to be careful," said Enrique, crossing his arms with a serious expression. "I don't mean to be rude, but I think you're confusing gratitude with something else." Raphael, with effort, looked up at his cousin. His voice was still fragile, but his tone was firm. "If Clara just did her job, I wouldn't be here right now." Henry frowned. "Raphael, it's not about that. It's about how the people around you see the situation. You are a successful businessman. He always made decisions based on reason. Don't you think you're getting carried away by your emotions?" "Enrique," replied Raphael, slowly but with determination, "maybe it's time to listen to your heart." The cousin shook his head, clearly uncomfortable, but chose not to insist. Raphael knew that Enrique was not the only one with this opinion. Comments began to appear from all sides. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Clara also began to feel the weight of the situation. Her co-workers, who had previously respected her, now whispered when she passed by. Some even insinuated that she was overstepping professional boundaries. "Clara, can I talk to you?" said a colleague during the break. "I know you want to help, but I think you're going further than you should." "What do you mean?" Clara asked, trying to contain her discomfort. "You are getting too involved with Raphael. People are talking about it, and it could end up hurting your career." Clara took a deep breath. "I know what I'm doing. My job is to help people, and that's what I'm doing with it." But that afternoon, Raphael noticed that Clara was further away. During a physical therapy session, he tried to start a conversation. "Is something wrong?" he asked with effort. "It's nothing you need to worry about," Clara replied, without looking directly at him. "If it affects you, I worry," Raphael insisted, in a sincere tone. Clara hesitated before admitting. "People are talking about us, Raphael. They say I'm crossing limits and that this could harm my image. It's not fair." Raphael was silent for a few seconds. Then, in the firmest voice he could muster, he replied, "Then let's show them wrong." A few days later, he invited her to a thank-you dinner organized by his family. Clara was reluctant at first, fearing exposure, but ended up accepting. At the event, she was nervous, but Raphael made a point of remaining by her side the entire time. "You don't have anything to prove to them," Raphael said, looking directly at her. During dinner, Clara won the sympathy of several people with her authenticity. His sincere and witty manner began to break down barriers. Seeing her interact with her family, Raphael felt that his feelings went far beyond gratitude. He was in love. Raphael was fully recovered, at least physically. He was able to walk again, speak fluently, and had even resumed some of his work responsibilities. However, one thing was clear: his worldview had completely changed, and much of that was due to Clara. He asked her to meet in the park near the hospital, something simple but special. When she arrived, with a smile that seemed to light up everything around her, Raphael felt his heart accelerate. He knew he couldn't postpone what he was feeling any longer. "Clara, thanks for coming," he said, his tone calm. "Of course, Raphael. I thought it would be good to see you away from those white hospital walls," she replied jokingly. He took a deep breath before continuing. "I needed to say something that has been on my mind for a while. You were the person who gave me strength in the most difficult times. I was lost, not knowing if I was going to get out of that bed. But then you showed up, made me laugh, showed me that every step, no matter how small, was worth it." "Raphael," she began, but he interrupted her. "Please let me finish. I don't know what would have happened if you weren't by my side. And now that I'm here, I want you to know that my gratitude isn't all I feel for you. Clara, you changed my life." Clara remained silent, visibly moved. But before he could respond, Raphael took something out of his pocket, a small ring, simple but meaningful. He knelt down, ignoring any curious glances around him. "Clara, do you accept continuing to change my life? Will you marry me?" She laughed nervously, but couldn't hold back the tears. "Raphael, this is crazy. You know we're from different worlds, don't you? What will people think?" "I know," he said, still kneeling. "But the only thing that matters to me now is what you think." Clara took a deep breath before smiling. "So, I guess I don't have much of a choice. Yes, Raphael, I accept." The wedding was small but full of meaning. Held in the hospital where they met, it symbolized the journey that brought them together. During the ceremony, Clara gave a speech that moved everyone. "Raphael showed me that strength is not in never falling, but in having the courage to get up, even when everything seems impossible, and I promised to be by his side, just as he was by mine." Months later, the two started a social project together, dedicated to improving medical care for vulnerable patients. Clara led the actions, while Raphael financed and offered strategic support. "You know I'm your boss on this project now, right?" she joked during a meeting. "Of course," he replied, smiling, "but only at work. At home, I'm still the one who decides what's for dinner." The two laughed, knowing they were ready to face any challenge together.